do not support this bill.
Speaker.
I call the honourable member, Melissa Lee. Annyeonghaseyo.
Annyeonghaseyo, Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's a pleasure to rise and support and talk about the Social Security Fraud Measures and Debt Recovery Amendment Bill in its first reading. So before I actually begin, I'd like to just remind members that this bill brings in new tools to prevent, detect and catch welfare fraud. And I know that members opposite have actually talked about many things, including the perception or their notion of what this government is all about in terms of welfare. Let me remind the members opposite that Labour, under their 9 years of government, did nothing about welfare reform, and this government is spending more than $536 million in 3 years to reform welfare. They talk about as if National Party and this government do not care about people on welfare and talk about beneficiary bashing. Well, let me actually remind the members that if that was in fact the case, why are we still providing welfare for the most vulnerable in this country? It is the misconception that opposition members like to tell the public so that they will be misinformed, as though we do not care about people. We do, on this side of the House, care about people. That is, I would have thought, a given, considering that we are doing something and spending a lot of money on welfare, sir. We are. For example, welfare will always be there for people in our community who need it. It will be there for people who actually need it. But anyone who can work should really go out and look for a job. That's what we're saying. We're not saying people who can't work should work. People who cannot work, who actually need to depend on the benefit, will get the benefit. There should be no misconception about that. So this bill creates an offence for those spouse or partners of a beneficiary who has knowingly benefited from a beneficiary's fraud, and will allow the Ministry of Social Development to recover those debts more successfully by information sharing between government agencies. Previously, what had actually happened is that if they suspected there was actually fraud, they had to tell people that they were investigating. MSD was required to tell a person they're being investigated for welfare fraud, and that person is required to provide the necessary information. Imagine that. If somebody had come and said to me and I was on welfare and they told me that I was being investigated, if I was an honest person, which I am, I would actually say, welcome, investigate me. But often than not, a lot of people were given the opportunity for fraud to be covered up and evidence often destroyed. That is not how it should happen. So this bill provides MSD the tools to investigate people who are who are actually offending. It's a criminal offence. They are defrauding the taxpayers of $128 million a year. That is no small sum that we should laugh at. Imagine how much more we can help people in vulnerable circumstances with that $128 million that is currently being defrauded. Sir, partners of beneficiary who knew of the fraud, and often they do, they're living in the same house, often as husband and wife, they must know that their partner is on welfare. They must know that they're actually drawing from MSD, a solo parent benefit, for example. Well, if they're living in a relationship that is like a marriage, they should not be drawing that benefit, and they are creating a fraud. And if they know about it, they will be fined up to $5,000 and 12 months jail term. This bill also provides for a review and appeal rights for spouse and partners. However, the vast majority of people declare their true circumstances and comply with their obligation, and I think that is actually something we should expect of everyone. And I know that opposition members have also said it is only a small percentage of people who are on welfare who actually do in fact create the situation that is actually tar the brush on everyone. and I think we need to make sure that we show them that it is not acceptable to defraud the taxpayer, and it is about time they change. So this is a great bill. I commend it to the House.
Great speech.
The Speaker.
I call the honourable member Le A'uwha o Mula Asanati